Hey guys, Criv the Lazy Geek here, and today we're going to talk about tripod leveling and how it is relevant or not for equatorial mounts. So it is actually drizzling a little bit right now, so I really should not be exposing my equipment to the elements like that, but hey, you know, we're in search of knowledge here. What is a little bit of rain when you have knowledge and an idiot wanted to take a video on the other side of the equation? Obviously, the idiot wanting to take a video will win, and so I win, and I hope that it will not rain harder, because then you will see me panicking like an even more idiotic idiot on camera. So, tripod leveling. This is one very good point with regards to the video that I published about like me setting up the tripod and the mount. Like, when do you level your tripod? And you know, it hadn't even crossed my mind, because I know that my balcony is horizontal. I know that the tripod legs are more or less, you know, the same length, and that therefore, you know, my tripod will be more or less level. And I try, actually, one of the things you've noticed as well is that I did not extend the legs of the tripod. So all those tripod legs are unextended, and I do not like extending tripod legs as much as I can, because after you've extended them, there's a lower diameter of the leg that's extended. There's a mechanism, a locking mechanism that comes in play, and you know, locking mechanisms and smaller diameter legs, I don't know, I feel like it could lead to some issues, and so I try not to have the legs extended. It's all the more true that for this particular mount it's quite heavy, and it's top heavy, right? It's heavy towards the top of the mount. I mean, it's not like it's bringing the center of gravity downwards. It's really like high above the ground, and so I don't know, it's more of a feeling than anything else. I try to keep the legs not extended, which means that I don't really have any space or room for leveling my tripod. The only thing I could do is actually put stuff under the legs to try to level the tripod if I want to not extend my legs in the first place. And for this tripod, I feel like we have enough distance between each of the legs to have a proper stable base for the mount, and so I don't need anyway to extend the legs. And maybe it's wrong of me, maybe, you know, I should actually be extending the legs, but I don't feel that's the case. And the only time when I will be extending tripod legs is if the tripod is actually really small, and it feels like the weight on top of the tripod might make it topple over, which is not the case with my tripod here. You know, opinions on this may vary. I do not have any scientific data to back this up. It is just my feeling, and this is where I came from when setting up this tripod. Now, knowing that, like, if you are going imaging somewhere else, and so you will want to try to level your tripod to some extent, because if you're on rough ground or uneven ground, you may want to extend your legs and actually do proper tripod leveling. And I get that, and that's understandable, and I would do it too. And yes, as much as possible, you do want the tripod to be level, but I want to say something weird, is that as long as you have managed to polar align your equatorial mount, the leveling of the tripod does not matter. Or it does not matter for most things, to be more precise. So let's do something weird. You see this long counterweight that I have here? I'm going to use it in a very non-counterweighty type of way by simply putting it under one of my tripod legs. Notice how right now the tripod, the mount is, you know, properly set to 0 position. The counterweight shaft is pointing downwards, like it's basically like if I were to unlock this axis, it would just dangle down because of gravity. So let's do something weird. I am going to actually do something horrible, and I hate myself for doing so, but you can see I have willingly made my tripod non-level. And I will make the statement that after I polar align my mount, it does not matter. So what will change though is that immediately you see that my mount, the counterweight shaft is no longer pointed exactly down, right? So it would be more like, it would look slanted with relative to the immovable parts of the mount and the tripod, but it would be something like that. But if I am polar aligned and the axis, the RA axis that I have here, is parallel to the Earth's rotation axis, then, when the mount rotates in RA, it will still counter the rotation of the Earth. When the mount rotates in declination, it will still, go along the declination lines of the coordinate system that we are working in. So there is no, problem with having this tripod like horribly uneven right now. The real issue with what I'm doing right now is, of course, mechanical in nature. We now have weight on top of the tripod that is basically like in one direction. Those two tripod legs, especially those two tripod legs are taking the brunt of that force. So we have uneven force applied to the tripod legs. How much of an impact that has, honestly, I don't know. But I don't think it would be that big of an impact. From the point of view of the equatorial mount itself, from the point of view of the RA axis and the deck axis, from the point of the motors, nothing has changed. I mean, I could have like a pier that's jutting out from this wall, like horizontally jutting out from this wall, and attach this equatorial mount in such a way that I could still polar align and point to the North Celestial Pole. It would still work. From the mount's point of view, nothing has changed. Now, this means that you can make the tripod uneven and image like that as long as you've been able to achieve proper alignment. And this is where things get a bit more complicated though, because now the azimuth axis here to adjust for polar alignment of the mount is no longer horizontal. And this axis here, the altitude axis for adjusting the polar alignment of the mount, is no longer vertical, which means that it will be more difficult, objectively speaking, from a human understanding point of view, to get the polar alignment done properly. On top of that, there is one thing that is actually affected by an uneven mount. It is routines like Celestron's All-Star Polar Alignment, or ASPA routine. The All-Star Polar Alignment routine from Celestron, as far as I remember, basically relies on having the mount aligned to multiple stars in the sky, so it has a decent model of the sky, and then it will you can center it on a specific star, and then the controller, I'm not sure exactly how it works because I never used it, but basically the controller will tell you to, instead of using the hand controller and the usual equatorial mount to center the star in the middle of the camera field of view or in the middle of your eyepiece, you're not going to use the mount itself, you're going to use the polar alignment knobs here. And when you've centered the star using the polar alignment knobs, the polar axis will be magically aligned with the Earth's rotation axis. And so it relies on this sky model, and it relies on the fact that you will be moving those knobs to center the star. And when you're moving those knobs to center the stars, one of the main assumptions it is making is that the tripod is roughly level, meaning that when I move the knobs here and I move the mount left and right, it's not slanted by a certain amount of degrees, it's actually horizontal. So there is a good mechanical reason for that. I don't want to go into the details, but that is one thing that is affected by poor tripod leveling. And so it is more difficult to achieve proper polar alignment with poor tripod leveling. But as long as the leveling is not like as horrible as I have right now, where it's absolutely obvious, you're fine. Like the mount will still work as usual, because as I was saying, from the mount's point of view, nothing has changed. If I am, like my mount is properly, balanced all across the way, so it's like the mount is just rotating its motors, and the motors are rotating across the same axis of rotation as ever. The declination axis is the same. From the mount's point of view, nothing changes. So that's why I never really bothered too much with leveling my tripod. I do it like roughly. I don't think I've actually really used bubble levels. Sometimes I do when I'm on the in the field, because then when you have uneven ground and it's in the dark, it might be a bit more difficult to tell what is level. But I've never done it at home. Maybe I should, but from my experience and from logic, it doesn't really matter, except when it does, like with the ASPA routine or equivalent routines that we have to achieve polar alignment. And also mechanically speaking, since like the whole thing is slanted in one direction, it could lead to issues. Now, if I have to extend one tripod leg to correct for 1.5 degree poor leveling of my mount of my tripod, would I do it? Probably not. So, because I don't like extending the legs of my tripod. That's a personal preference. I'm not sure like how much basis in fact it has, but that has been like my personal preference, that I want to keep like the fat legs of the tripod only. I don't want to diminish the diameter of the legs of the tripod by extending those legs, and I don't want to introduce like mechanical problems potentially with the knobs here, since like in the past I've had a tripod that slipped even when you tighten the damn knob. So, as always, your mileage may vary, but this is my thought process with regards to leveling the tripod. So, leveling the tripod, yes, doesn't hurt, that's for sure. It makes everything a bit smoother in terms of how to polar align in the end. You do not need to be super, detailed and super precise with the leveling of the tripod for equatorial mounts. And there's another question that I saw, by the way, with regards to my previous video, is when will I be doing the polar alignment? Because many people, I get the feeling, do the polar alignment before they mount the whole telescope on top of the mount. I prefer to avoid that, because after you've done the polar alignment, and if you set up a heavy OTA, especially a heavy telescope like this, on top, you might actually be bumping your mount and tripod out of alignment. So I prefer to have everything put on top of the mount before I do polar alignment. Yes, the knobs, the adjustment knobs will be stiffer, and it will be more difficult to accomplish, but it will work, and then you don't have to nudge the mount ever by actually reinstalling the equipment. And typically, after I remove the OTA and put it back on for whatever reason, I will be redoing my polar alignment, because I know I've likely bumped it a little bit outside of alignment. So that's like a bonus video with regards to like the previous video. Summary is, as far as I am concerned, a very precise leveling of the tripod is not necessary. I prefer to have the tripod slightly unlevel if it means that my tripod legs will be fully retracted. However, leveling the tripod in and of itself is not a problem. It's actually really good. It's not going to introduce any issues. It's going to diminish it's going to basically even out the stress of the mount on each of the tripod legs. So, but I wouldn't spend like a huge amount of time on it, making sure it is correct. Now, it would be a completely different story for alt-azimuth mounts, obviously, but for an equatorial mount, since the axis of rotation is not decided by how the mount is mounted, I could have this mount on an anti-gravity drive, and that mount could just like be floating above ground. It doesn't care how it is floating above ground, as long as the RA axis is parallel to the Earth's rotation axis. And so that's how I see things, and that's why when I did that video, it did not even occur to me to talk about leveling, and I apologize about that. So this is precisions about leveling and about polar alignments. I hope it has been useful. It's like, sometimes it's a bit unintuitive, because after you convince yourself that you don't care whether the tripod is leveled or not, for as long as you are polar aligned, then you're like asking yourself, okay, yeah, I don't care, but why then are all-star polar alignment methods like Celestron's method depending on the tripod leveling? And they actually do, and it's, they actually do. So that's something to keep in mind. So tripod level, good. Tripod unlevel, still good, still fine, as long as it's not like 20 degrees or something outrageous like I have right now. And that's pretty much it for this video. So I hope this was a good complement of information. I hope this was useful. A lot of this is not, I have not measured, the precision of the mount tracking with an uneven tripod versus an even tripod versus legs extended versus legs retracted. So I do not have actual basis in fact to make those statements. So please be aware of that. This is not the scientific method. This is just me and my preferences. You're free to do what you want to do. So with that out of the way, I hope this video was useful. If you did find it useful, please go down below, click on the like button. If you have any comments or suggestions, please go down in the comments, let me know about that. If if you are not subscribed to this channel and you like this type of content, I have tons of different types of content all related to astronomy and astrophotography, from very technical videos to very practical videos. Please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If while you're at it, you may even want to click on the little notification bell icon so that you are aware when I post a new video. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. As usual, whenever you can, don't forget to look up at the stars. Don't expose your telescope to rain for no reason whatsoever. So do as I say, not as I do, as always. And with that, I'll see you next time.